Hi, and welcome to the first week of the Heroes and Villains podcast. For our first show, we're going to be looking at the character who is going to be starring in the newest Netflix series, and that hero is Luke Cage, Hero for Hire, or Powerman. He's got a lot of names, but in this podcast, I'm just going to call him Luke or Cage. And in case you're wondering, that's what we're going to be doing here on the Heroes and Villains podcast. We'll take a look at heroes and villains that are super popular and some that are pretty obscure that you may have never heard of. But I think you'll really dig. So let's jump right into the origin of Luke Cage, the man with unbreakable skin. Yep, that's another name. So on the podcast, we're going to look at pretty much the original origins of characters, and that's no different from Luke Cage. We're going to go back to the first few episodes, the first appearances. We're not going to really be bothered with 90 reboots. We'll get into those as we sort of move our way along the character's timeline. But in these podcasts, we're going to look at the original origins. Luke Cage, also known as Powerman, was created by Archie Goodwin and artist John Romita Sr. Cage was created for Marvel to take advantage of the blaxploitation film boom in the early 70s. Blaxploitation films were targeted at urban black audiences, but like most exploitation genre films, its popularity spread through the mainstream culture. The movies Shaft and Sweetback's Badass, and that's how it's written, a lot of A's and a lot of S's, are credited as the first films that invented the genre. And seeing the title of that last movie, it makes me wonder if Luke's favorite catchphrase, Sweet Christmas, has some connection to that film. He first appeared in Luke Cage, Hero for Hire #1 in 1972, which Goodman wrote and George Tuska drew, and was the first black hero to star in his own comic. And for example, in the blaxploitation genre, that year, Blackula, an American blaxploitation horror film, was released and was one of the most top-grossing films of the year. Now at the time, black mainstream heroes were not common, they were quite rare. There was the Black Panther, but he wore a mask, so technically no one really knew he was black. Luke didn't bother to wear a mask. He just had a really high collar. So what is Luke's backstory? What drove him to be a hero for hire? Well, this was a fun one for me, mostly because it gave me the excuse to take out my copy of Luke Cage, Hero for Hire #1 that I picked up years ago, I think, at a con for $2. Now, of course, the first thing that you notice when you get out your original copy of a comic, especially one from the 70s, is the smell of the paper. I love that smell. The rest of the book is full of great poses and action. It's a really great read. It kind of holds up, and it's just some nice storytelling. Luke lived in Harlem and spent most of his youth running with a street gang called the Rivals, along with his best friend Stryker, where they pretty much engaged in low-level crimes. Because of these activities, Luke was in and out of trouble with the police and was shuttled from juvenile home to juvenile home. Not seeing any real future, he dreamed of rising through the ranks of the syndicate and becoming a major player. But Luke was a good person and became aware of the pain he was causing his family and decided to go straight. We can already see a little touch of a hero in him here. He continued to be friends with Stryker and Stryker's girlfriend Reva. They were childhood friends and it made no sense to sort of break that up. But there was a chemistry between Luke and Reva, but they didn't want to break up this lifelong friendship, so they just stayed friends. Now, Luke's friend Stryker stayed in the gang, stayed in organized crime, and tried to rise through the ranks, but he started to ruffle some feathers of the syndicate, and they attacked Stryker. But their hit was thwarted by Luke, who just wanted to help out his friend. Now, Stryker was injured in the hit and ended up in the hospital. While there, Reva realized that with Stryker there was no future, and it was really bad for her, so she broke it off, and she turned to Luke for comfort. Now, Stryker was enraged. He blamed Luke for poisoning her against him and was very jealous. And consumed with this jealousy, Stryker plants heroin in Luke's apartment and tips off the police, which lands Luke in jail. Now, while in jail, the syndicate attempt another hit on Stryker's life, and again he escapes. However, in this attempt, Reva was in the car with him and is killed in a hail of gunfire. Now, angry and bitter for being in prison for a crime he didn't commit, Luke spends much of his time fighting and getting into trouble. This behavior gets him transferred to Seagate Prison, a brutal prison in Georgia. While there, for whatever reason, Luke became the target of a racist, sadistic guard that went by the name, believe it or not, of Albert Billy Bob Rackham. Singling Luke out makes Cage's life a living hell. Because of his focus and his brutal behavior towards Luke, Billy Bob is demoted, which only adds to his hatred of Cage. Then one day, Dr. Noah Bernstein came to the prison to carry out a medical experiment and was looking for inmates who would volunteer. If successful, his cell regeneration formula, which was based off the super soldier formula that transformed Steve Rogers into Captain America, would cure all diseases and make the recipient nearly immortal. Now, this is the time in the origin where you sort of look at it and you say, is this a little insensitive? At the time, obviously, they weren't thinking this way, but, here we have a majority of a sort of a black prison population. We have this white scientist coming in to pretty much experiment on people, sort of Tuskegee-like experiments, just because they really have no other choice. It's creating a hero, but it's almost like in a left-handed way. Yes, the doctor's wanting to do good, but, I question going into a prison and sort of giving prisoners an ultimatum, pretty much saying, if you go ahead and do this, you're going to maybe get your freedom. It might look good for the parole board. And that's what Luke believes. If he does this, yes, it will help humanity. He does mention that, he does think of that, but he also knows that maybe this will help him with the parole board and get him out of jail. Now, before things ramp up in the high gear with this origin story, let's take a quick break and hear from our sponsor. This podcast is brought to you by DCBS Service, Discount Comic Book Service. I've been using these guys. I looked at my account. I think I've been using them since 2004. It is an amazing service. All comics, at least 40% off, some 50% off, some 75% off. And these aren't older comics, these are your weekly books. You go to the site, you can buy them right off the site, pre-order them using previews, or you can download an Excel sheet, fill it out, send it in, pay, and then they ship them to you. Now, I know you like going to your local comic store, so do I. I still go talk to the guys, but listen, 40% off. 50% off, 75% off. Your comic order cut in half. It's hard not to. Comic books are $2.99, $3.99, $4.99, not with Discount Comic Book Service. I've been using them forever. Shipments are perfect condition. They are wrapped in plastic. They are enclosed in foam, and they are taped. I have never gotten a book damaged. It has been a perfect service. So if you want to see what it's all about, you can go over to dcbservice.com. For example, right now, you've got 50% off all Marvel Now titles. You've got DC new miniseries bundles, 50% off. Vertigo Young Animal bundles, 50% off. Just, you name it, 50% off. It's incredible. So go over again to dcbservice.com. So Luke decides in the end to go ahead with the experiment. He's immersed in a chemical bath with an electrical field running through it, of course, because electricity and chemical baths always do this type of thing. And believe it or not, Dr. Bernstein puts him in the bath and he leaves him unattended. Now, you would think this is a huge experiment, you've been waiting for this your whole life, you would man the controls. He doesn't, he leaves. While he's away, Billy Bob comes into the lab and tampers with the controls on the tank that Luke was in. Now, Luke is trapped in the tank. He's unable to escape, and then Dr. Bernstein comes back in. Dr. Bernstein and Billy Bob scuffle, they're fighting. Luke, in his anger, struggles to get out of the tank. And in his struggles, he is able to break free. In his anger, he strikes Billy Bob, and since he is not yet aware of his increased strength, the blow kills the man. Now, fearing retribution from a justice system that has never treated him fairly in the past, he escapes using his newly acquired powers. Cornered by the police, they fire on him, which makes him fall into the ocean below. Now, believing Luke has been killed, they did empty their revolvers into him, they go back into the prison and start filling out all the paperwork secret experiments must cause. Luke emerges from the water and realizes he not only has super strength, but unbreakable skin. Luke returns to Harlem, where he gets into the hero business, literally. With his headquarters over the Gem Theater, Luke sells his services as a superhero for his community. Within his community, his adventures are not with the likes of Kang or Annihilus, but are more grounded in real-life battles, as Luke Cage, Hero for Hire. So that's the original origin of Luke Cage. The title started out strong, but as the blaxploitation craze of the 70s waned, so did the popularity of the title. To try to save the title, they made Luke more of a mainstream hero in the Marvel U, having him fight along popular heroes of the day. He was then brought into the superhero team The Defenders, where he fought along heroes like Namor and Doctor Strange. Now there were some bumps in the popularity of the title, but it was still failing. Now at the same time, Marvel had another superhero that was having a hard time with sales. That was Iron Fist. So they decided to bring the two together and change the title to Powerman and Iron Fist. Now this happened at issue 50, and it boosted the popularity of the title again, and it lasted another 75 issues until it finally was canceled. Now throughout the 90s, there were a few more tries at bringing Cage back into his own series, and there was even another Iron Fist team-up, but they never lasted. And it wasn't until 2001 when Brian Michael Bendis created and retconned the character Jessica Jones into the Marvel U that Luke was brought back and started to finally gain traction as a character again. Now, Jessica Jones is another amazing character, and we will have an episode on her. Now, first in the title, Luke is seen as sort of a boyfriend, caring, in flashbacks to the comics. Later on in the comics, he's pretty much just seen as a friend with benefits. Jessica and him hook up, and, we don't see him a whole lot. But at the end of the comic, the end of the series, we find out that she's pregnant, and she's pregnant with Luke's child. Now, they decide to have the child, and in time marry. They become Avengers and continue to be heroes throughout the Marvel U. So that's the evolution of Luke Cage as a hero. Now, of course, things are going to change. They always fool around with origins. They reinvent the characters, especially now that he has his own Netflix show that's going to be coming out, spinning out of Jessica Jones, the show, which was fantastic. We also have, of course, what's going to happen, this new team-up, because Iron Fist is another show that Netflix is doing. So we'll have Powerman and Iron Fist together again on the screen. Then we'll have Jessica Jones, add Daredevil, add the Punisher, and we're going to have a new Defenders. So it's a really awesome time that all these sort of obscure and kind of new characters are being brought back to the TV. This is the golden age of superhero television, and not since, Bill Bixby and the Incredible Hulk have we had such great TV about superheroes. So I'm looking forward to seeing the show. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. As we move forward, we're going to be doing more heroes, we're going to be doing more villains. And stop over at heroesandvillaispodcast.com. I've got a lot of information in the show notes, a lot of links, a lot of trailers to different episodes and videos that they're going to be having, and some information regarding like the Netflix shows, Luke Cage as a character, some stuff from the Marvel U, things like that. You can also go over there and maybe make a comment. Who would you like to see us do next? A hero, a villain? Give us some names. Now, if you get a second, go over to iTunes and like and leave a comment. It really helps us out. You can also subscribe at the Google Play site. Again, this is something I really enjoy doing. I really love talking about comics. And I think because this is called the Heroes and Villains podcast, next episode will be highlighting a villain. So again, thanks for listening to the Heroes and Villains podcast. Our theme music is by Broke for Free. Other music was from Kevin MacLeod. And other music can be seen in the show notes and was found on freemusic.org. And again, thanks for listening.